back. Good to see some smiling faces. Not that you weren't at camp as well, but obviously great time. Week one of college football for us. Like week 0 was last week, but week 1 of college football, and like everybody knows, a lot of unknowns. And I don't just mean about our opponents. I think that's the unique thing. Today's day and age of college football, I'd say a lot of people, in particular people that have new quarterbacks, a lot of things and unknowns even after 30-some practices. For us, through all of spring football, a majority of our team, 30-some practices through fall camp, and still a lot of unknowns, just how things are really going to, people are going to play together. And so it's an exciting time. It's a challenging time because even as you start to dive into your opponent, there's a lot of unknowns with them as well. That's like always been that way in game ones, but I think in particular, even for a team like Miami of Ohio, who I think I know a lot about, playing them every year. Chuck Martin's done a great job, I don't think, over the last 13 years. So there's some consistencies there, but still, as you go to personnel, same thing they're probably saying for us. There's a lot of unknowns as they look at what they're going to see and we look at what we're going to see. But ultimately, game one in particular, it's about focusing on yourself. And for us, it's about going out there. It's about us playing with some confidence and playing clean because, we got a lot to prove to ourselves and a lot to establish as we continue to move forward. But it can't get here fast enough.
Luke, can you give us an update on Tucker Ashcraft and how's Jake Renfro in terms of?
Tucker will not make it. I don't know if we officially know how long he'll be out for. Jake should be good. He's practiced, I think, the last 4 or 5 days. So he looks good and looks healthy. So I feel like we're in a good place there, and I don't know that. I think he's probably taken most of every rep. So hopefully that everything stays on pace there, and Jake will be good to go.
Luke, you mentioned the unknowns. Is that maybe the most challenging part of week one, or how has that maybe changed throughout your coaching career, like the challenge of week one?
Week ones are always different, right? I mean, whether it's new staffs, whether you're playing somebody that's new. I think just over the last 3 or 4 years of college football, just as much of turnover as you have, whether at the quarterback position in particular, but just in general, as much turnover as you've had, there's a lot of unknowns. And like you said, it can help in a lot of ways. You got a lot of older guys. I mean, we got 30-some guys, 32, 34 guys that are technically in their last year of college football, which would make you a very old team, but yet a very few of them have played together for significant time. And so with that being said, there's a lot of unknowns. And how guys just kind of handle the situation, how they mesh together. So yes, it provides a lot of anxiety and uncertainty, but I couldn't have more confidence in just the way things have gone over the last 30-some practices from the leadership and how guys have been able to step up, because we've, like everybody, we've had those injuries like we just talked about with Jake, who was out for a while, and other guys just have to step up, and so you get a lot of opportunities to see other guys together. This will be probably one of the first full weeks where we've had what we feel like is, in particular, a starting group, or at least the in particular offensive line together as one.
Jesse, do you have some familiarity with the Finn based on some previous portal evaluations?
Yeah.
What stands out about him and the challenge you think he'll present this opening?
I mean, I think there's a lot of things. I think as you really kind of go back and look at him over history, obviously at Toledo he's done a phenomenal job. In some would say obviously a dual threat guy, but that doesn't take away from his ability to throw the football. And so I think more than anything, when you look at a quarterback that's been through a lot of different things, obviously 3 or 4 years at Toledo, a year at Baylor, you see a maturity as they continue to grow. And sometimes, maybe things didn't go exactly the way you wanted them last year at Baylor. Sometimes that does nothing but helps you grow up more than anything else. So I would expect nothing but the best. And you can watch, and we've watched and know a little bit more about him just because of, trying to look at him a couple years ago. I think he fits what they do in this system more like he did at Toledo than maybe he did at Baylor. And I would expect that, you'll see a guy that's pretty dynamic, and I don't just mean in running, but the ability to throw the ball down the field, the ability to create things with his feet. And he's played a lot of football.
This is your third straight year with a transfer quarterback, but it's the first time it's somebody from within the conference, another Big Ten guy. I'm just wondering, how does that familiarity of that Big Ten, how does that kind of change the dynamic? Was that something you were looking for when you were?
No, I don't think it does change the dynamic. Obviously, I think the thing you said first and foremost is the most unique thing is the third year with, a transfer quarterback, in particular, a guy that's 1 year. So that has made it a challenge, and to be honest with you, I think I knew as much about Tanner Mordecai in year one as anybody, just playing against him for a few years. Didn't know as much about Tyler Van Dyke last year. I'd say we knew a lot about Billy, but didn't because we didn't play him, so didn't actually see him face to face. So I think there's some different things on all of them, but I wouldn't say that there's any more familiarity just because the guy played in the league. I do think that it obviously gives him, not say some credibility, but a leg up at understanding, how this league works and how tough it is, how hard it is on the road and different things like that. That I think will vote well not only for him but for us as we go through the season.
With Jake coming back, I guess I'm just wondering, what's your thoughts in terms of how vital it is to have him, back in the group?
Well, I mean, obviously the center, anything down the middle of your offense and defense is so critical. And everybody talks about the quarterback, but I mean, it starts, right there in the middle. There's a reason that Jake represented us and went with us to Vegas, to the Big Ten Media Days. And it has a lot to do with just, leadership. It has a lot to do with his ability to communicate, but also has to do with his play as well. And so having him back the last, 4, 5, 6 days, I think has been a boost. But there were some guys that stepped in there that did some really, really good things. And I think sometimes those are the tough things through camp. Those are the frustrating things that are going to happen, but those are the things that make your team what they are. Because it's rare to go through a season without having some of those injuries. It's rare, in particular, on the offensive line, which we've been fortunate the last couple years to not have as many of those things. But the challenge is how do people grow? How does other leadership step up? I think that's helped Joe Brunner even step up more as a leader, of 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks or whatever it was that Jake was out. It made Riley Mahlman step up even more because even though those guys have been here for a long time and are a core nucleus to what it is that we do, and not having someone that kind of becomes a little bit more of the voice just by nature of a center, it makes those guys get into a position where they have to be a little bit something, different. They have to take over that role. So I think it's helped us in a lot of ways. Playing together, maybe they've missed a little bit, but it's. I know there's a pick-me-up just knowing that they've got that group of guys back together.
Look, I don't know if you were involved in the depth chart it's in the packet here, but a lot of oars there, including a kicker. Do you know who's going to be the kicker for you guys?
Yeah, Vacos is going to start off kicking for us. I don't know. You sent me that last night. There was some. I think I only sent one thing back, but yeah, I noticed. I couldn't even figure out if the oars were across or was down. So I don't know if that's part of week one, and you give a lot of unknowns. And it's been a battle. Those guys battled through the spring. I think in the long run, we'll still see. The great thing about college, you still have some of those flexibilities with games to be able to play. But we know that both of them we feel are really, really good. And as you continue to always plan and look for the future, to be able to have one back was something that was going to be possibly important to us. So right now, obviously, Vacos is the kicker. He'll start off playing and doing that way in the game, but we'll still continue to push both those guys and give them opportunities.
Mike Tressel talked before camp began about emphasizing getting more TFLs, more takeaways, limiting explosives. Those are presumably important for any defense, but based on what you've seen this camp, what gives you confidence that this defense will be better in some of the areas where it's been struggling?
I mean, I'm not one that's going to sit here and overpromise. I think we've hopefully realized that over the last couple years. But I do feel like, we are in a better place. And I mean that even structurally. Everybody wants to say and is going to say they want their guys to be aggressive. And I think that has a lot to do with it. But it's also about what the things that you do on a consistent basis and the expectations that you have for guys. I just feel like no matter what up front, it's where it starts. And we have a lot more size. We have some more length. And to be honest with you, we have some more experience. And I think that's where, even outside of, who's to say where, how talented are they, and do they have the ability to get up the field? Do they have the ability to make, like, when you've got some more size, and you've got some more length, and you've got an incredible experience, I think it gives you a better chance for us to have confidence to, be able to be more aggressive with them, as opposed to, concerned about, like we said, hey, well, the quarterback is a threat. And yes, it is, but there's a balance to what you're doing and how you do it. And I think for anything over the last 30-some practices, there's been a confidence build in allowing those guys to be more aggressive. But now they got to go out and do it.
Dylan Jones and Darren Dupree probably fall in that unknown category to some degree because they haven't done it consistently. But do you feel pretty strongly that you know what you have there?
I do, and I don't. I don't know that I would, substitute or say, hey, what would you like to have different in that group? I mean, that is the most competitive group, I think, on our team. Have they proven everything? No. I probably said this, and I don't know if I said it publicly, but I think that group in particular has a bigger indication on how we really do this year than just about any other group. Just because, the dynamics of those guys, and can they make some things happen? You can't block everybody, and those guys have got to be able to make some plays themselves and get to the second level. And I think that's just where, as you look a little bit at, through 2 years, is when you've got somebody that can create some things, create energy, be dynamic, I think like we had with Braylon in year one, it gives you a different vibe. I hope and believe that that's what we've got in that room. And I'm not just saying Darren Dill. I think K. Giacomelli is another guy that just can give us some difference, but they got to go out and prove it. I mean, the one position when you don't play live that sometimes I don't say worried, but I know as little about is the running backs. Just the nature of how are they when it's true live? Do they really make people miss in the open field? Can they stay on their feet? What's it like with the yak, the yards after contact? Like, 95% of our practices are thud. And don't get me wrong, I mean, thud for us is almost completely full go, especially inside the tackle boxes. But there's still an element of saying, hey, how do those guys create things and how do they handle things? What is it like with the yards after contact? And I feel good, but another one of those situations where I'm not going to overpromise. Like, I believe in those guys. I'm excited to see what they can do. But again, we got to go out and do it.
Zach, here in the gym, if you can go back to Nick.
You got a couple of true freshmen inside linebackers in the 2 deep with Cooper Catalano and Mason Posa. What have you seen from them in camp, and specifically Mason, because he wasn't here in spring?
Yeah, Coop obviously was there in spring ball and showed up. Just has a natural knack to find the football, which probably would be why he's the all-time leading tackler in Wisconsin high school football. That has truly shown. But he's also grown up a lot, and I just mean physically. When a guy puts on 20-some pounds, it shows. Not that now how important it is to him, but how dedicated he is to what it is that he's being asked to do. So that combination of things votes really well. Obviously, Mason Posa has done a good job. Like, he wasn't here in the spring, and he came in, and there's some depth at that position, and he had to battle, and he didn't get half as many reps as Coop, but has shown up in a lot of situations. I don't know that I'd say both of them are not listed as oars, but are very viable options that you'll see on special teams, and I would say would have a role. And I don't just mean based on the game, like, are going to get these guys into play, and probably Coop a little bit more even so than Mason just yet, just because of Tommy Heiberger and those guys are still. There's a couple guys at that will position, but are guys that we're going to definitely see throughout this entire season.
Luke, kind of similar to Colton's question. Competition like a backup quarterback. No Orr listed, so Danny O'Neal. Just what did he kind of do to separate himself a little bit?
It's hard. I think as we went through camp, it was more trying to figure out how do you give the reps to the two quarterback, because we knew going into Billy was going to get the ones, and he needed an enormous amount of reps just with the new offense and things like that. And so as you were splitting reps with the twos, you're trying to find a way, say, how do we evaluate these guys? Sometimes the 2-0 line is, decimated and really thin and with a lot of young guys, so it's hard to evaluate those guys. So obviously Danny being here in the spring gave us a little bit better opportunity to see how he does in some live action. And then I think by the end of the camp, it's just the consistency, the ability to make plays, I think a little bit more familiarity with the offense. But I do feel like, look, I mean, we've got to be able to keep guys locked in, so whether it's 3 or so. In the past couple of years, that room can get thin quick. But I think Danny has done a really good job. He's a smart football player that I think truly I will outplay his just normal ability of what people would think of him.
Oh, John, here in the back, Andrew.
Speaking of the true freshmen, you also have Eugene, Cairo on the depth chart. Kind of what stood out to them, or what stood out about them in fall camp, and kind of what's your overall philosophy on playing these guys versus retaining those?
Play them. Cairo's an interesting one in the sense that, with all the things that has gone on Nizier and not knowing, he's been put in a position where he got an enormous amount of reps and on both sides. So I think that those are the things that we kind of talk about of camp, of if there is a guy that goes down, that sometimes for the team the best thing that happens is someone goes down and they only miss 3 weeks. They're not long term, but that puts a lot of pressure on other guys to step up. Because there can be a comfortability, right? Oh, I'm playing behind Rico Holman, and I know he's going to play every game. As opposed to, hey, Rico twisted an ankle, Nye's not able to play. You're in there with a lot of young guys playing with the one. So he's done a great job of proving not only that he can do it, but he has the maturity to be able to handle the things that we're asking him to do. And the same case for Eugene. We saw some of those flashes in spring ball. But like a young guy, you see a little bit more of a roller coaster. And I think the thing I can say about Eugene is you saw a growth, meaning like you saw the flashes from the spring, but what you saw in fall camp was a consistency. And everything that we asked those guys to do, I think it's really difficult for young guys. Some guys are just natural. Well, this guy's a speed guy, so as a young guy, he's just going to be a speed guy until he can learn the other things. Or this guy's a possession guy, and until he can build some speed, he's going to just be what he is. And the thing about Eugene is there's a maturity to what he's doing that he allows him to be able to, even at a young age, to do everything. And that's where that consistency is really shown through fall camp. And I don't think we would hesitate a bit to play him a bunch of plays.
Andrew back here, then Colton up front.
You get to this time of year, is it almost like Christmas Eve, like you're just fired up and ready to go? And, game week's here, but you still got a couple days left.
Well, as a parent with Christmas, it's a little bit easier because you may have a better idea of what morning's going to look like. And I know there's some unknowns. Don't get me wrong, but as a kid, yeah. So there's a lot of things that are a little bit more unknowns, and it is. There's twofold. There's an anxiety about we just want to play, but there's still some things we got to be able to do, and then there's some unknowns, and so an exciting time. It never I don't care how many years you've done it. In particular, college football, this is probably the most exciting, but yet, anxiety-ridden time as any time during the year.
Luke, you mentioned leaders today and throughout training camp and a lot of different guys. You guys haven't announced captains. You mentioned on BTN that wasn't going to be something you guys were going to do this year. What was the thought process behind that?
We feel like we got a leadership. This is a group led of more than just specifically saying who's going to put a C on their chest. There's a lot of things for me in particular. Like by the end of the year, I would definitely say that at the end of the year, you would say, hey, these are guys that represented us throughout the entire year in the way that we would expect. And so hopefully at the end of the year, we'll be able to say, hey, who are those guys that really stepped up? But for now, I think that this group is led by a bunch of guys. And I'm being honest. It's not one of those things like, well, you don't want to single somebody out or somebody hasn't stepped up. No, I think the strength is in the pack. And so we have a leadership group of 14 guys that I really would say could be any of them. And, to me, that the challenge to those guys is there's a consistency to leadership that myself obviously haven't been a good enough example of, and that we haven't seen for 2 years. And just knowing what kind of battles we have and what kind of mountain we have to climb, we have to show the consistency within our own program. So those that show that will obviously rise maybe by the end of the year. And if it's 14 of them, then I wouldn't be hard pressed to say, hey, there's 14 guys that led this team. But I think the idea is we're trying to stay away from as much as we can of anything individual, and making sure that these guys understand that they all have some roles, and we want those roles to grow. Sometimes you name captains, and all of a sudden that means, well, my role just grew. No, and my role just went down because I'm not. No. Our roles will continue to grow. The better, and the more we do things together, in the long run, the better we're going to be. So we'll have guys represent us this week, and each and every week we'll have game captains.
Coach, in a week one game, how do you balance try to set the tone and wanting to dominate versus potentially holding something back or not wanting to show your hand or your cards to your opponents for the rest of the game?
Yeah, I don't think we're in a lot of places to hold things back. I mean, there's things that you don't feel like maybe fit for week one, and you could call it holding back. But the truth of the matter is we want to play in mid-season form, and I'm sure every coach says that. But what does that mean? I don't know that means we want big plays. We want to play clean. We want to play with speed. We want to play with that idea that we don't want to have those pre-snap penalties that just happen because we haven't played in front of 80,000 people, and we haven't played live that all. Our objective with 34, so to speak, older guys is, hey, we want to be able to play at mid-season form, and what that means is the way that we do things, even really before and after the snap of the football. The way we do things between those 4 to 6 seconds is not going to change. But I think for us more than anything is how do we show a consistency, and you're going to hear this over and over and over, this complementary program that's not too high, not too low, but has a consistency no matter what the game looks like, no matter what the week looks like, that there's a growth, and you can see it growing, whether it's from quarter 1, 2, 3, but ultimately in that fourth quarter.
Luke, you said that you feel like you're in a better place. You feel like this program's in a good place too. With the way that the season ended, that process, in a nutshell, what are the steps that you take to put yourself into that headspace of being in a good place here today?
Well, it's more the stuff that happens around you, right? I mean, every coach sits up there in week one and says, we're in a good place, and I can't wait, and you've had a great camp, and whether they talk about injuries or something, I can tell you that this is a group. There's a reason why there's not somebody particularly say, oh, these are the captains. Like, the idea is they've embraced, this team has embraced one another, and I think that they're tighter, they're more together. They understand the challenges and the battle that lies in front of us, whether that's Thursday night or even down the road. And that's why, to be honest with you, that's why I sleep better. Does that mean that, how good are we? Do we have explosive? Do we have guys that can make plays? Do we have guys that can go the distance? I mean, those are things that we'll see. We'll continue to see. But I know this. I think we've got a group in that locker room that believe in one another, and I think just tied a little bit deeper than I've felt since I've been here. And a lot of people would say in college football that's not quite the realm nowadays. With you got 17, 18, 30 some new guys from freshmen to transfers. How can they really be that tight together? Well, we'll see. But I know that from 14 days away at Platteville to just the things that we've asked them to do, we're in a much better place. Now, do we go and perform better? That's what we got to be able to do, and those things got to be able to show on game days. But I feel good about where we are.